Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of a Man, and today we're going to do another manga review. Now today's manga review is going to be on All You Need Is Kill. This is written by Hiroshi Sakurasaka. The storyboards for the manga, because this is originally a light novel, are done by Ryosuke Takeuchi, and the art is done by Takeshi Obata of Death Note fame. And this is put out by Viz Media. And yeah, the genres here are shonen, it's sci-fi, and this is an adaptation, and it has a Hollywood movie with the name Edge of Tomorrow. Tom Cruise is in it. I don't know how well it follows this original story, but it's available if you want to watch that. Now, before we start, I look at 5 things in my reviews. I look at the plot line, the character, the world building, the art, and the fan service. The first 3 are my version of an objective take on a book. Then the art is my opinion about what I think about it. And then fan service is a warning for people that are against it in the media they consume. Now, the premise of All You Need Is Kill is that this young rookie jacket jockey, which is the people that use these power suits in this world, is stuck in this time loop of death, basically. He resets every time he dies, and there's some rules to it that he finds out as the story progresses. And so he realizes that he must battle his way out of it. He must win the battle that he's in order to get out of the loop. So with his intelligence, his tenacity, and quite a bit of luck, he's able to figure it out, and the story continues from there. And yeah, let's just get into it. So the plot line here is actually really awesome. I really like how this very basic sci-fi trope is used very uniquely and very differently from how most people use it here. It's actually a bit astounding that a few tiny twists in the general premise of a time loop that continues until you solve it changes how it really works. It's really interesting. Now, the initial loop is where the story starts. The story brings you in on a loop, and then it gives you a lot of exposition. You get a few more loops, and then you get this other character, and she gets some exposition. And then, they unite forces, and then, some more loops, and then the final confrontation at the end, the climax of the story, which is very good. I really enjoyed the whole thing. The plotline here is very great. Yeah, so the characters here are very good. They're both very well done, although technically this is the weakest part of the story, because they are very surface level characters. There's enough depth for them to feel interesting and unique, but there isn't a great exploration of their character and then of individuals. But it's still very well executed use of characterization. So there's 2 main characters. Keiji Kiriya, who is the main character, and he's this guy that really develops and adapts to his new reality. He changes throughout the story. When he starts the story, he seems like he's there out of a sense of duty, but it's not a very strong sense of duty. He's against guns, he doesn't like violence, and it's like, why are you a soldier if you're not into these things? Or if you're not filled with some sort of righteous duty or righteous sense of duty in order to be a soldier and fight the battle against these aliens that are harming humanity. So he does develop that righteous fury kind of thing as the story progresses, although I'm not really sure if it's righteous fury, if all it is because he must selfishly make this happen so his reality changes, and so that he can continue his life because he's stuck in the same day. And so there's a bit of moral implication there if you want to dig a little deeper, and some questions about soldiers and their duty to themselves and others and how it really affects how they're battling. But I don't know if it'll really go that deep. It's something that is there below the surface if you want to look for it. And yeah, so he really develops and reaches his peak and kind of uses Rita, who is the other main character, as the symbol of what he wants to be as a soldier, because she is by and large the best soldier on the battlefield. So she is besides just being his like the peak, the pinnacle of what a good soldier is according to Keiji, she is also kind of like a foil for him. She's this inspiration, his kind of goal. They develop this relationship over the course of the book. It's kind of one-sided, but not really. It's like interestingly developed, and it's not really a basic. It's not like a romance. It's kind of this like romanticization of a connection between two individuals. It kind of has that sort of like, we've gone through this struggle together, so therefore we are brothers in arms, kind of that sort of thing. But it's also a bit romantic. It's a little complex. I don't really want to explain more than that because it would be very spoilery, and I don't really want to do that. So it's very good. Now, the world building is what I found the best, but is also the thing I have the most issues with, because there are three very glaring facts that the author seems to not have noticed in his book that he could have easily fixed with one-off sentences of text when Keiji was thinking. So I'll talk about them once I get there, but there is spoilers in that section, and I'll try to give you guys a warning before we get there. So world building in general is very good. It's actually very well done. It's deep enough to feel realistic and like possible, viable. The human side of things is people in power suits. These are very Halo-esque kind of clone commando type of armor from like video games. You know, a hard metal suit with a helmet. It augments their strength. It augments their speed and maneuverability, like movement. And yeah, the aliens that they're fighting are called mimics. They're these weird balls with like a mouth, kind of like Pac-Man, but if Pac-Man was like an eldritch horror. And they're very creepy and gruesome, and they have a lot of interesting tidbits of information to them. And I really like the way that they get compared to computers, and the way that they work and the way that they communicate. It's kind of like hive mind. It's really interesting, and I really enjoyed how it worked. I found it interesting that they were kind of related to the effect of the time loop. So that was cool. And now this is where we get into spoilers. So if you don't want to listen to that, I'll come back and put a timestamp to where you should go for me to talk about the art. Now, I have a very big problem with three aspects of this story. The first aspect is that the mimics can control time. Now, if they can control time, why are they wasting their time battling against humans? Just revolve time forward until humans die off and then take over the world. You don't have to fight them. If it's like, I understand that for the mimics, it's actually rather easy to battle humans, and it doesn't take that much effort. But they're allowing humans to win, even if it's rarely. Why would they take that chance? I think it's very odd. I'm sure there are limitations, but I don't feel like they were explained correctly or well enough for me to suspend my disbelief enough and take that in to allow for this situation to occur. It just feels a little contrived that the mimics are allowing humans to battle them, even though they wouldn't have to if they just waited. I'm trying to think about if there was any possible explanation to why this happened. I don't think so. And that's kind of the problem. If one of the things that they said was the mimics can only control time in a specific region for a specific amount of time, like they're able to control time in this region of 100 square kilometers for the amount of a year, then I could see how their limitation allows humans to battle them and still be able to win. But there wasn't anything like that, so I feel that their limitation was arbitrary for the sake of the story. Now, there's another issue with the mimics, is that their bodies are so strong that no bullet or rocket that humans can fire at them affects them. It doesn't break through their exoskeleton. However, there are two ways that humans have found to harm them. One is this weird gauntlet that you punch them, and then this like giant spike dagger thing kind of gets thrown into them. And the other is with these giant bladed weapons. And the one that Keiji and Rita use is a double-headed axe. Apparently it's made of steel and it weighs 200 kilograms. I don't understand how it's possible for steel to not bend and crumble with the amount of force that they're using to hit their opponents that have exoskeletons so strong that rocket launchers can't affect them. The sheer amount, I don't know exactly, but I feel like the sheer amount of force needed to break through those shells would crumble steel. The problem is that it's made of steel. Like, one of the characters explicitly says, I have extra steel, let me make you an axe really quickly. It's so odd and so like easily fixed. You could have just picked titanium or some sort of alloy or something that we can assume is stronger or equivalently strong to these exoskeletons. Maybe you could even make it out of dead exoskeletons that the mimics that you've defeated before dropped. You could make that. It wouldn't... The problem is that it's steel, and steel is not that strong. It wouldn't be able to withstand the necessary force to rip through that exoskeleton. And why haven't they made guns that shoot hard enough, which is in this case harder than a rocket launcher, to shoot steel bullets that can go through and pierce through their exoskeleton? It seems very asinine and stupid that humans hadn't developed that yet. If they already had all the technology needed, they just needed to upgrade it to the level that was necessary. So that's that. Now, the other kind of problem I have here, and actually I understand why they did this. It's because of the aesthetic of destroying monsters with a giant axe is very cool. However, I wish they would have picked a different type of weapon. Like, if it's all purely based on the force of the object, you could have used a giant warhammer. They could have done like something like Reinhardt from Overwatch. If, however, you want a bladed weapon, you need something with reach. So a spear, a giant halberd, or a giant pole axe would have been much better than a giant axe. If you guys watch Shadiversity, very good channel, he is a medieval enthusiast who discusses this a lot. And it's that an axe has a much slower or likelihood of landing a strike than a sword or a spear. Because the problem here is that as you're swinging, all of the force is at the top, and you don't have enough leverage at the bottom because of how heavy the top is to change directions easily when you're fighting. Now, they have super suits, so this is manageable, but it's still comparative because these axes are supposed to be 200 kilograms, if I remember correctly, 200 kilograms. And so even though they're stronger, they're still gonna have the limitations just to a different degree than they would without it. So a sword would be actually much better because even though your reach is lower, your chances of actually landing a hit are much larger because a sword is all cutting surface. Axe is only the head. And a spear would be the best because it gives you a lot of extra reach because a spear is a long weapon. And because the tip of the spear is not as big, heavy, like heft-wise as an axe head, it allows you to control it much easier. So you can jab quickly, move it, control your blade much easier than an axe head. So I think the weapon they chose, although very aesthetically pleasing, is the wrong weapon for the situation. And I would have liked it for Keiji and Rita to have different weapons. I think it would have just been more interesting. But I mean, that's more of a nitpick than a real issue. The issue really is, why haven't humans made guns that are able to shoot with a high enough acceleration to make the force necessary to pierce those exoskeletons if they already know how much force is required? Because they can easily calculate the force generated by a swing of the giant axe head that Rita has. It's actually relatively easy to find out how much force that is, and then to make a weapon that shoots with that force. So, and that would have actually made battle against these mimics way easier and people would have had to die way less. But it seems like the author at least didn't think enough of it through to really make the story truly make sense. I mean, it's still fantasy and fiction, I understand that, but it's better when it makes more sense. The last thing, it has to do with the way the time loop works. Now the way, and this is very spoilery, that Keiji makes it past these things is by all of this extra training and psychological development of his military prowess, of his ability as a fighter. Now, that might work, but it only seems like his consciousness travels back in time at the end of each loop when he dies, not his actual body. Now, the way that I understand how muscle memory works, which is basically what he's using to get better at fighting, is that it's actually the result of you developing a synapse in your brain with a very, very strong connection through which electrical pulses run faster than other synapses with less powerful connections. That also means that Keiji, if he wants to actually increase his battle prowess physically, needs to actually have his body travel back in time with him. Now, this isn't clearly stated in the book, and that's why I'm complaining about it, is because a one-off line through like the first 150 loops could have been, wow, I think I've bulked up a little bit, or something along those lines that shows that his body is also traveling back in time, not just his mentality, or his consciousness. Because if it's only his consciousness, he'll have all of these techniques and abilities memorized, but his body won't be able to move them as fast. He won't be able to physically make them happen, even though he mentally is able to. So that was a bit of an issue there. And that's basically it there. I think his battle instincts would not work for him, even though he spent 250 times or whatever mastering them, if his body didn't actually return with him. If it's only his consciousness, there's a problem. And the only reason I'm complaining about this is because there wasn't an explicit recognition of this fact that could have easily been shoved into any speech bubble that he had, or any thought bubble that he had, that just mentioned that he felt that he was getting stronger physically every time. Now, it's possible that this was said and I just don't remember it, but I don't actually think so. So there are big-ish problems with the world building, but it's a very satisfying amount of world building anyways. I very much enjoyed it, and I hope that you guys will read it and enjoy it as well. Now, the art here is awesome. It's very gruesome and it's a little bit edgy, but it's very well done. Let me see if I can show you a couple panels. This is the inside of a mimic. It's this like ball with a bunch of teeth and stuff. Here's another thing. You see that giant axe? That's really cool. I really like the way this works. Is there fan service? There's a little bit of it, and it's actually kind of sexy. Like, that's not really fan service, but that's a very well done kind of picture of Rita. It's really nice. I really like how she looks and stuff. There's a few shower scenes with Rita. There's hints of, our main character getting asked if he wants to have sex with one of the other female characters. It's not very much. It's very little fan service, but there are bits and pieces of it here. It's not really any worse than a PG-13 movie that has a little bit of a raunchiness to it. So I rate this a 5 out of 5 or a 10 out of 10. It's actually, I wouldn't say it's actually a 10 out of 10, but because of the issues I mentioned, but it's a very, very surprisingly good read, and I really recommend this to anyone that is a fan of sci-fi. This reminds me of Halo or Pacific Rim, and it's really just a very well executed story that I really want to experience again. I am going to buy the light novel, and I'm gonna try to check out the movie and then compare them at some later date. But yeah, now the one thing I do want to note before I leave is that this book feels like there's more to it. It leaves off very satisfyingly, and it really closes up all of the story threads but it feels like this world has more space in it for another story. I just feel like there's more space, more stuff to explore in this world. And that might be done intentionally because maybe the author wasn't ready to make another story but felt that he could set up one if he wanted to. I don't really know, and unless I read the source material, I can't really tell you for sure. But yeah, it was very good, very enjoyable. I hope everyone else reads it and enjoys it as well. And please, if you guys have already read it, please let me know what you guys thought about it down below. Let me know if you're interested, and check out my other YouTube videos. Please like and subscribe and comment down below, and see you guys later.